I then was looking for the guy ahead of him, and the next thing I saw was a parachute right in front of my face. And this chap had actually ejected, and he went very, very low over the top of my cockpit, still horizontal, and a big human star shape. And I then engaged the front guy with 30mm. Unfortunately, as I fired the second missile, I lost my head-up display. It was a glitch in the software. It had been developed in a matter of about 3 weeks and sent down in someone's Burberry pocket. Normally, you just turned the HUD off and back on again, and 15, 20 seconds later, you had a picture, but there was no time for that. So I just pulled this guy to the bottom of the windscreen, squeezed the trigger and gradually released it back, and then pulled him to the bottom again and did the same again. Didn't see any hits. He was down around about 20, 30 feet at this stage as well. And this is, pretty dark dusk. So at that stage, having run out of bullets, I was aware of Dave behind me saying, pull up, someone's shooting at you. And all he'd seen was whoosh bang from my 2 missiles, and then a dark shape with explosions all rounded in the water. And he assumed it was me, but it was the Skyhawk I was shooting at. So I pulled up vertically. He saw me go up through the horizon and fired a missile at the guy I'd been shooting at, and it took him out at maximum range. I saw the missile burn out halfway to the target, but it still had the legs to get there, and the flash of the warhead actually hit the reflection in the water. So he was down less than 20 feet. And there was just a big greasy fireball, and he landed at Rain Cove in Lafonia. I then looked at the fuel gauges and realized that I wasn't going to get back to the ship. We used as a rule of thumb 2,000 pounds of fuel overhead Stanley was about the right figure to get back. And I had 1,400 pounds. So it wasn't going to happen. And I got up, I said to Dave, okay, just make your own way back. I'm going to go up as high as I can. I got up to 42,000 feet, flew 8 units angle of attack, which was the most economic speed. Looked at the fuel to go, got the ship on radar after a little while, looked at the fuel to go, distance to go, and it just wasn't going to work. So I called the ship and said, we've been engaged, we're desperately short of fuel. Bear in mind, this is the first time I ever landed on a ship at night. They actually turned the ship towards me and came up to 32 knots and only turned into wind as I was about 4 or 5 miles out. And that's what saved us. It just closed the distance enough. I closed the throttle at 90 miles out, descended into the cloud, very thick cloud, ended up in a thunderstorm with heaving rain, and came out of the cloud about a mile behind the ship or so, still with the throttle idle, saw the ship, slammed the nozzles, the gears, and flat down, brought the power up, came screaming up alongside, stopped, and as I broke cloud, the low-level warning lights started to flash, which was 500 pounds of fuel. Came up alongside the ship, didn't stabilize the hover at all, whipped it across, slammed it down, taxied forwards, and then was aware Dave was landing about 30 seconds behind me. And I had about 90 seconds fuel remaining when I landed, about 300 pounds. And I checked, Dave had a little bit less than me. I checked the pilot's notes the next morning, and it said up to 300 pounds can be unusable depending on the attitude of the aircraft. And I'd come alongside and gone, oh, like that, and then landed. So I was very, very lucky. I was taken up to see Wings for a debrief, both of us, and then he took us down to the captain for a debrief, and we were then joined by John Locke, the ship's commander, who said the Admiral wanted a debrief. I went down to the Admiral's cabin, and as we left the cabin, I just looked at my watch, and John Locke said, "Don't worry, Moggy, we've kept the bar open for you." And we arrived in the boardroom bar, and there were 3 pints each on the bar for us. But the 2 guys I hit both died. The first one died in the aircraft. The second one was never found. I think he was probably unconscious when he hit the water, having ejected very fast from a Skyhawk. They had ballistic spreaders on the parachute, so they tend to split you up the middle if you're going too fast. The third guy that I tried to gun and then Dave shot down was found by the Islanders, still strapped in his bang seat. There was a 4th guy. I knew there were 4, but I never knew where he went to. And it transpired, I met him 10 years later in London, Hector Sanchez. He had been the last guy running in for the attack, and I had nearly collided with him as I came in, and he'd broken away to stop the collision. And by the time he turned around to get back to me, I'd shot the first guy down and was just about to shoot the second guy down. And his gun had been damaged by ground fire a couple of minutes earlier. And wouldn't fire. So it was maximum range, but he might just have got me. But we're now very firm friends. And in fact, I met up with him in the Falklands last February, not last February, February last year, beg your pardon. And we also went back with the son of the third Skyhawk pilot and a bunch of his friends to the wreck of his father's aircraft. And I was able to stand there with him and Hector and explain exactly what had happened and show that he'd been told that his father had flown into the ground, and I was able to prove to him that it wasn't. He'd actually been shot down by a missile. You could see the damage mark on the aircraft.
Could you?
And in fact, there was shrapnel through the ejection seat. So his father had been killed instantly. Well, we put up a small memorial there, quite moving.
I did want to ask you about that emotional aspect. I mean, it's war, and they've just dropped a bomb on your comrades in arms in their sort of landing craft. You're doing what you have to do, but afterwards, and clearly, and this comes through all the way through the book in terms of your sort of emotional response to the things you're being asked to do. You're not enjoying the process of going out there and taking other people's lives. But how do you feel about it afterwards? Is it something that weighs on your mind? I note that in the beginning of your book, there's a great bit of narrative, and you think that it's you flying a combat mission, but it's not. It's you having a nightmare. I understand that you've had post-traumatic stress.
Mm. During that particular engagement, my emotions went instantly from one extreme to another, from absolute concentration, almost hatred of the target, the guy that I was shooting down, because he just attacked and pretty sure killed some of my guys. And I'm supposed to be looking after these guys. So I was very, very intense anger. And then when I saw the second guy actually in the parachute, that switched 180 degrees to empathy, and then immediately 180 degrees back to huge anger as I attacked the third guy. And after that, once we were back on board, I mean, huge sense of elation and relief that we'd actually managed to get back on board, because it was very, very close run, and elation that we'd actually managed to carry out the task that we were asked to do. Later on, you begin to think, well, actually, if we'd met these guys in a pub somewhere, we'd have been best of pals. And certainly meeting Hector 10 years later helped a lot, because I'd been through some fairly rough times with PTSD. Nightmares were one of the things. Tape recording in my head, like a videotape, just playing over and over and over. And in fact, at one stage, the only time that I got any respite from this nonsense was when I was flying. Because when I was flying, my brain could do nothing else but concentrate on what was going on. But on the ground, it just kept coming back, which was not good. And it's one of the reasons that made me leave the Navy, actually. So I just felt I couldn't carry on with that.
I've seen an interview with you on YouTube, filmed in 1990. You're still flying Sea Harriers with the Navy at that point. How quickly then did the PTSD take hold following the conflict?
Started almost immediately. The videotape in the head bit, and I thought, this is stupid. I'll cure myself. So I thought I cured myself. I just got a grip, as they say, and sorted it out. And all I'd done actually was just drive it deeper under. And it was the beginning of the first Gulf War that brought it all to a head. My squadron was supposed to be going to join Illustrious and go out there, and it suddenly came back and hit me on the back of the head. And I knew the doc at Yeovilton very well, and went to see her and said, look, Liz, I've got a major problem here. I need to get it sorted when we get home. And she said, okay, I can do one of two things. I can ground you, or I can take you off the squadron and put you on the training unit. So you'll still be flying and training the new guys, but you won't be going to war. Go away and talk to your wife and think about it and let me know in the morning. And one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was to walk into the briefing the next morning and tell the squadron that I wouldn't be going with them to the Gulf War. But in fact, all they did was steam around in circles off Cyprus, which would have absolutely crucified me. So I'm very glad. I'm always thankful for Liz for taking me off. It was the right thing to do, certainly.
If you enjoyed this clip and want more, you can go to 10percenttrue.com, hit subscribe, you get early ad-free access to all my content. Appreciate your support.